BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
What's up, Tiger fans? Welcome to another episode of Tiger Talk TV. I am the Corey C. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single upcoming episode. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. So be sure to follow the show and tell every Tiger that you know. And remember, when you support Tiger Talk TV, it all helps the cause, which is the I love Jackson State University. All right, we're getting ready for a big one in Montgomery. Alabama State. Revenge is on the mind of Jackson State. They came into the vet last year and stole homecoming from us, so we're looking to get them back. A lot of SWAC East implications on the line. Jackson State can clinch. Alabama State looking to stay alive, so it should be a good one. No better person to come on and talk about it than the coordinator of athletic communications at Alabama State, none other than Khalil Stewart. Welcome to Tiger Talk TV.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me on your show.
Oh yeah, man, my pleasure, man. We couldn't wait to have you on the show. I talked to a couple people at Alabama State, and they said Khalil. Your name just kept coming up when I said, "Who can we talk to about this Hornets team?" So you were the unanimous recommendation. So we're excited to have you. We know you're full of knowledge. You do a lot at the university. We have some mutual, I guess, associates, if you will, or former for you.
Right.
So we'll get into all that. But
Yeah.
first, talk about that title. What exactly do you do? I know it's a little bit of everything. We kind of break it down in a nutshell.
So I'll try to sum it up. So I do the coaches show, which is how one of the ways you found me. Every single week with Coach Robinson, it's a great opportunity to interview coaches, athletes. I lead a media team. We do all the content creation for all the sports: basketball, football, baseball, all that type of stuff. So content creation. I also do a little bit of writing, stories here and there, but it's mainly just the best way I can put it, and I kind of want to change my title to
Okay,
multimedia specialist.
I like it.
I wish that I gotta talk to the higher ups about that, but
You deserve it.
it's a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything.
Did you think of that name, or is there somebody else with that title already, or will you be the first?
Uh, I think I'll be the first,
Yeah,
but there's in today's world, even when it comes to like football coaching staffs, there's so many different titles that come
it
about now. Like
is.
you have offensive analysts, you have
Yeah,
quality control. So
mhm.
I think I can throw myself in that hat.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. You earned it. You earned it. So with all that you do, come Saturday, come game day, do you actually get to sit down and watch the game, or they have you working on something during the game as well?
So I usually get to watch everything besides the first quarter because I
Okay.
have to make sure all my students are set and make sure they have their credentials. They're able to get in the game. I do get to sit down and watch the game. It's a great opportunity. Always a great environment. But I mean, I'm averaging about 17,000 steps on game day because I'm always on the move.
Gotcha. Always on the move. All right.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's get to it, man. Alabama State 4-2 on the season in SWAC play. Tough loss this Saturday, and we'll get into that. But they're technically still alive in the East. You know, obviously you need some things to work in your favor. But a loss Saturday against Jackson State would end all hopes. And I know Alabama State was picked to win the East in the preseason poll. So without getting into the specifics of any individual games, because we'll get to that, but how would you assess the season so far, especially considering those preseason expectations?
I mean, I think one of the things that Coach Robinson doesn't like to do is make excuses, but it's something that I'm going to give them. I give this team a little bit of grace because you've dealt with so many injuries,
Mhm.
in particular at the quarterback position. I don't think that in today's like in NFL basketball, you could never have imagined losing your top 4, 5 quarterbacks.
Mm-mm.
And if you would have told Kareem Key at the beginning of the season that you were going to go from scrimmage team to the starting quarterback on the team, and we're going to be in the contention to be in the
Yeah.
SWAC championship till the very last game in November almost. I don't think he would have believed you. Right. I don't think Coach Robinson would have believed you either because, with the injuries we had at quarterback position, I think we've maximized everything that we have. The defense is I think this is probably the best defense that we've had in Coach Robinson's tenure. I think that this is the best offensive line. This is a talented group, and it sucks that we had those injuries at the beginning because, with us being picked to finish first, I think if you had those quarterbacks in place, it's a different scenario. But Kareem Key has put himself in the hat to possibly be, to be the leader of the future because he's played so well. And I think our confidence in him the confidence he has in himself because he's very much of a even kill kind of guy from what you see. He's never too high, never too low. And even, we're going to talk about the game Saturday. We still had a chance to win a game. He led us down the field and led a almost game-winning drive. And for a freshman to have that kind of poise, it's amazing. So if I'm Coach Robinson, obviously the goal is a SWAC championship and a Celebration Bowl. But there are big leaps and bounds that this team made from last year. This is the best team he's had.
Mm-hmm. So this was the first time in a while that Alabama State has gone into the season as the favorites in the East. I know that's new to Coach Robinson and most of, if not all, the players on the team. How do you think the team approached the season? Do you think they felt that they were the hunted this time around, or do you think they still had that underdog mindset, especially with Jackson State and FAMU still getting most of the media spotlight?
So I think that to start the season off, this is a position that we've never been in. We've never been the number one projected team, at least not since I've been here. So I think that naturally you still have that underdog mindset. I believe that we play best when we're the underdog because there was a lot of situations this year. Like I mentioned, when you're down to, your fifth string quarterback, you're not supposed to be in a game. When you talk, I joke, me and Kendall talked about this at Jackson State, if in the NFL, when you lose your starting quarterback, your first three quarterbacks in the NFL, you're going to free agency. In college, you got what you got in the locker room. You got to make do what you got. But I think that this team has actually exceeded expectations. The defense has not given up. This team has continued to fight week after week after week to put themselves in a position where, obviously we talked about the probability if they're still in the mix. But the fact of you still being in the mix with the injuries that we've dealt with, I think that's impressive. And I think it's a testament to what Coach Robinson has built, and he's instilling belief in his team. One of the things that he's mentioned on the coach's show is if you look at a problem like a problem, you already lost. Okay. And this team has continued to compete and put ourselves in that mix for a potential SWAC championship.
With this quarterback situation, just take us through it because I don't think that's resonating with people who don't know. He's the number 5 quarterback. So going into the season, Kareem, was he even a quarterback? Because a lot of teams don't even have 5 on the roster. Was he a wide receiver? You said scout team. Walk us through how you go from, obviously they all got injured, but just walk us through going from Andrew Body to the number 5 quarterback.
So Kareem, from what I understand, he started the season off as he transferred here as a wide receiver. Okay. From I want to say a JUCO or community college, I want to say. And he was on the scout team because Coach Robinson mentioned that, he played a lot of scout team. And he was like, hey, he made this joke and it actually happened. He said, hey, you're going to win the Magic Classic MVP this year. I don't know when or how it's going to happen, but you're going to win it. Wow. And obviously it came to fruition. But obviously Andrew Body goes down in the Orange Blossom Classic. Jonah O'Brien goes down in the Orange Blossom Classic as well. Then we get down to James Hayes. James Hayes gets injured in the Miles College game, the second game of the season. And now we're down to we're Zach Sims, and Zach Sims didn't give you exact, maybe not. He still has some growing to do as a quarterback. He's a freshman. As freshmen they have growing pains. And then we make the transition to Kareem Key in the FAMU game, and he showed some promise. He showed a lot of good moments. Zach showed some promise as well, but as a freshman, you still have those things you have to learn. And I think it's a situation where both of them are growing together and they're still learning the offense as a whole. And I think they're both going to have bright futures. But Kareem has really just, as the weeks have gone on, he has really taken hold of his offense. And it's like he mastered the playbook in a short amount of time. And I can only imagine, getting essentially a full season in this offense gives some confidence going into next year and in the spring, where you could potentially, you're battling for that quarterback spot.
With him being the 5th quarterback, Is there a number 6 guy on the roster? I mean, knock on wood, but if something were to happen to him, I mean, are you just putting a running back there to just hand it off to another running back, or did you have a 6 guy?
I mean, hey, I told Coach Robinson, if you gotta put me out there, I'm ready whenever you need me. But yeah, we have quarterbacks. Javius Langford, Zach Sims still available.
Okay.
We still have guys back there, but Kareem Key has really performed well, and I think he's gonna be the guy for the remainder of the season.
So some of the guys who were ahead of him on the depth chart going into the season who got injured are back healthy, but he's still getting the nod over them. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure about that, about the specifics of that, but I do know that Kareem is the guy moving forward for this season.
Okay. All right. All right. So why do you think they've been able to keep winning despite that quarterback situation?
I have to say that our running game has been efficient. Our running game and obviously the defense. The defense is one of the best in the FCS.
Hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this game. It's going to be the
Yep.
number one defense versus number one offense in the
Yeah.
SWAC. But ultimately, I think the play calling has been amazing. We've executed and we haven't beat ourselves. Ultimately, you go into playing big games like the Mastery Classic where there's a lot of pressure on you as a freshman quarterback, or a lot of this team is young ultimately on
Okay.
offense. The offensive front is veteran led. That's why they're so dominant. But the skill positions, the quarterbacks, I mean, it's freshmen and sophomores. So you're talking about inexperienced guys who are making the most of their opportunity. And it's Coach Robinson instilling that belief in them that, hey, you may last week you might have been the last in the depth chart, but this week I need you to make a play as a starter, and you're going to save this game. I think you saw a perfect example of that in the Mastery Classic with Kareem winning Offensive Player of the Game, and I can't think of the kid's name who got the Tayshaun Sims was a true freshman as well. He's ended up getting some playing time because of some injuries we had in the secondary, and you got two freshmen to win Mastery Classic MVP.
Yeah.
Two guys that ultimately before the season weren't even in the conversation to be a starter, I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we have just made the most of our opportunity. Guys are exceeding, and it's a testament to recruiting, honestly. Because if you're able to put a freshman out there against a team like FAMU, who has a lot of transfer portal guys, a team like Bethune-Cookman, who has transfer portal guys, and even Jackson State, who we'll see this weekend, those are veteran-led teams. Jacobian Morgan has been at Jackson State for 2 years. He's been at Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
There's veterans all over, and for you to be able to put freshmen and sophomores out there, and they're competing at the highest level, I think that's a testament to what Coach Juwan Lewis has done as a recruiting coordinator and Coach Robinson and the entire offensive and defensive staff.
Yeah, of course, Alabama State spoiled Jackson State's homecoming last year, and I know that's on the minds of the coaches and players. But Jackson State is a different team now, but so is Alabama State. What would you say are some of the biggest differences between this Hornets team and the one that won in Jackson last year?
So I think defensively we are the same, but we're better, I would say.
Okay.
And we're better because we have 2 or 3 dynamic linebackers. Obviously, Bubba Adams was dominant.
Yeah.
But Rico Dozier is dominant as well. DeMarcus Cunningham is dominant as well. And we have 2 linebackers that are performing, week to week. It's like either one could take over the game. And that's not even to mention in the secondary, we have James Burgess. I think that I've told Coach Robinson this before. There's not one guy on this defense that's just the standout guy. You have stars at each level. On the front 7, you have Janelle Brown, Stephon Youngroll. When you go to the next level, you have, like I said, Rico Dozier, Marcus Cunningham, and even Rudy Jean-Louis, who had a pick against Grambling. Mm-hmm. And in the secondary, you have Amon Scarborough, James Burgess, Caleb Alford. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's defense by committee. And then in the running back room, this is probably the deepest running back room we've had in Alabama State history, I would say. I don't want to say best because I don't know what happened before I got here, but we have a very deep running back room. Jamari Holdsclaw, AJ Gates, DeQuan Kinsey. The list goes on and on. I'm forgetting a couple guys. Marcus Harris is the second or third. We're just dominant in the running back room. And I think the biggest thing also is our offensive line has been performing at a high level. You get into situations where you're trying to protect your freshman quarterback, and if he gets injured, I mean, you're kind of just you're dead to rights. But they've done a great job of protecting him, keeping his jersey clean. They've also opened up holes for the running back room, and I think that our ability to control the clock. This is a team that has really bought into what Coach Robinson's philosophy is. That's what he wants to run the ball. And we've been able to do that this year at a very high level.
Yeah, I know that running back room has really stepped up this season, averaging 171 yards per game, a stable of backs, like you said, that they rely on. I know Holtzclaw at one point was leading the team in rushing. What is his status? Has that been made public? Because I know there were some injury issues with him.
I'm not sure about his status for Saturday. I do know he was injured in the classic and he hasn't played and he's played since. But yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the offensive line. That's definitely been a positive for the team. Only 14 sacks given up this season, which is third in the SWAC. How huge has that been, not only for the running game, but for the, obviously with these different quarterbacks, especially a young freshman, how big has that been to have that consistency on that offensive line to give him time?
I mean, you have guys in the offensive line who got recruited by Coach Robinson when he first got here, and now they developed in the program because I think we've done a great job at developing talent on a year-to-year basis. Now you have guys like Aurelius Dunn who have taken that next step. Cam Smith, who's taking that next step, coming over in the transfer portal from Clark Atlanta, and it's just opened up holes for our running backs. And Coach Chris Brown for the offensive line has done a great job coming in and really getting them to buy in. He's probably the most intense coach on the staff, and he's animated their practice. But I think one of the things you have to think about is this: when you're playing every single day, our offense is facing the best defense that they're going to face every single week in practice. On a week-to-week basis, you're facing the best defense in one of the best defenses in FCS. If you can move the ball on them, you can move the ball on anybody. So I think that's a big thing that helps us out as well. You're playing against the best.
Khalil, talk about new offensive coordinator Chris Barnett and the job he's done, especially given the circumstances. Has he been able to consistently run his desired offense, or has he had to keep changing things up to kind of cater to those different quarterbacks?
I honestly don't feel like that we've changed our offense up at all. Honestly, I think it's been the same offense consistently, but it's just based off of the eye test. Obviously, I'm not in the quarterback room. I'm not drawing up the schemes. If they were calling me in there, I probably would say throw the ball deep every time, but let's go balls away. But I think that for Kareem to be still throwing the ball, able to putting up 300, I think against Valley he put up 300 yards. Against Grambling he threw for about 200 something yards. I mean, that's not really keep leaving the training wheels on. When you're allowing your freshman quarterback, who was a wide receiver before the season, to throw the ball 20 times a game against a FAMU, against Alabama A&M, who is a pretty good defense. That's not really, they're not babying him in any kind of way, I don't believe. So I think that he has been able to do exactly what he's wanted to do. Obviously, still have some growing pains. You're still learning a system, and obviously the quarterback situation has probably brought his ups and downs when it comes to drawing up schemes. But Kareem has executed that game plan, executed everything that Coach Barnett has wanted to do at a high level. And the play calling has been beautiful, in my opinion. Beautiful.
I know he had a couple big passing games, but overall, and this is including the other quarterbacks prior to Kareem, but they've struggled passing the ball a little bit, which is not too surprising given the shuffling at quarterback. Only averaging 147 yards per game through the air. Talk about the loss of Keyshawn Johnson from last year, who transferred out, and which of those receivers will have to step up to help out the quarterback.
So it's funny that you bring that up. Last night I was talking to Coach Robinson about how deep this wide receiver room as well. We have a young receiving core: Aja Harrell, Eric Horn, Asa Gregg. These are guys who were on the scout team last year. Now they're stepping up and having to be the main guy now. And the thing about them is they may not be getting 10 targets a game, but you best believe that they are out when the running backs are coming outside. They are the ones making those blocks to get them in the end zone. Like they are truly all bought in to blocking, and that's not common when you're talking about a situation where we're talking about now in nowadays game. You have receivers in the NFL or college football at the Power 5 level who may be getting 1,500 yards per season. I think that it's a testament to buy-in with our receivers, and I think that Asa Gregg has taken that big step. I expect him to keep growing year by year, and Eric Horn has been amazing. He's a speed guy. He's got size, and that's the biggest thing. I think that it's a beautiful thing when you have multiple guys at the receiver position as opposed to one. Obviously, the Keyshawn Johnson loss hurt us, but I mean, it gave opportunity for these other guys to step up, and they have rose to the occasion.
Take us through that Grambling game from last week, just kind of watching and keeping up with the scores. It was a wild one, especially towards the end there. That 24-23 loss, obviously a devastating loss, but just talk about how that game unfolded.
Unfortunately, a couple things went wrong. Things that I'm sure that plays that we probably would have liked to have back. I think that we got into the red zone a couple of times and probably should have scored touchdowns, but we had to settle for field goals. But ultimately, I mean, as Coach Robinson would say, what should have happened happened. You can't make mental errors. You can't make little mistakes. It's never the big plays that lose you the game. It's always little stuff. It's always, maybe whether it's you having a penalty where it's too many men on the field, or somebody jumps off sides, or it's a holding call, or a busted coverage here or a busted coverage there. What should have happened happened. I think that when you're talking about being a championship team or having aspirations of being a championship team, you have to be on your P's and Q's, and you can't give yourself you don't have a lot of room for error. Not in this division. In the SWAC East, you do not have a lot of room for error. You can have one bad day and you're losing to, Bethune-Cookman. You're losing to Valley, as you saw FAMU when they played Prairie View this week. I mean, the SWAC East is tough, but the SWAC as a whole is tough. Like I've talked to Kendall about this before. The SWAC is you can lose any single week in any week. The teams that are 0-10 or 0-8,
Valley.
That's a tough game. I mean, you have to admit, from a Jackson State perspective, I don't think you expected Valley to come out there and put up 14 points on y'all in the first quarter. You're like scratching your head and looking around like
we didn't when I did the preview show. They told us Jerome Blake, who came off Valley, he told us this is a good team.
Right, and they did that when they came here. They went up on us 14-0. We're like, oh Lord, why we're losing the Valley? But this SWAC is tough, and this SWAC East, when you have three teams, Jackson State, Alabama State, FAMU, you do not have much room for error, and that's why you see Jackson State undefeated right now. And you got to find ways and make a way at all costs.
Absolutely. Let's move over to the defense. I know you've touched on it throughout the show because that's where this team really hangs its hat. 4 preseason all-SWAC first-teamers on that side of the ball and 1 on the second team. Now, JSU, as you mentioned, has one of the top offenses in HBCU football, so something has to give this weekend. Looking forward to see who bends, who breaks. But talk about the kind of defense that we'll see on Saturday and why they've been so good. You say Alabama State offense, they won't face a defense as good as they face in practice. So what is Jackson State up against this Saturday?
You're up against a physical defense, a defense who will turn you over, and they take advantage. They're not just getting interceptions just to get them. They're getting them, and they're getting pick sixes. They're picking up fumbles, and they're scoring. They are putting their offense, giving the offense short field, because I think that's always the goal. It's one thing to be a DB and you knock a ball down, but pick the ball off, turn the ball over, make it worth your while. I think we've done a great job at that this year. It's turning the ball over. I think we've had 4 or 5 straight weeks where we're getting turnovers and executing them. I mean, you talk about that Alcorn game in Port City Classic. Keon Lewis has been balling. He's had 2 straight weeks of interceptions, and he had a pick 6. You take away that pick 6, it's a whole different game, and we may not be in the game against Alcorn. But I think our secondary is the strongest part of this team. We're deep. We're lanky. I told Coach Robinson before, I said, you got shooting guards playing cornerback. You got 6'3" and 6'4" corners playing cornerback, and that's exactly what you need in this conference, because there's a lot of skill at the skill position. You got guys like Travis Terrell. I mean, what you got to be able to cover those guys and make tackles, and I think that it's going to be a chess match. It's going to come down to who can make the best adjustments, and even if you get off to a strong start in this game, you got to finish, because both teams are capable of putting up a lot of points.
Yeah, the Hornets are one of the best, if not the best, in the SWAC in scoring defense, total defense, and defensive efficiency. They're number 2 in the conference in interceptions. You talked about that tall secondary, the shooting guards, the small forwards. I think they're probably the tallest secondary in the SWAC. You talked about the interceptions at 13 on the season. They've taken 2 of them to the house for touchdowns. They're number 2 in the conference in sacks with 24. They lead the league in forced fumbles. I mean, this team on defense seems like a juggernaut on paper. But is there anywhere you feel this defense has struggled or at least been vulnerable at all this season?
I think sometimes when it comes to a cornerback room that is so talented, you rely on each other so much that you can have miscommunications, you can have lapses. I think when you have like you mentioned, when you're second in the conference in in sacks, I'm sorry, you're able to you can get comfortable because you're like, okay, my D line gonna get there. Jamil Brown is gonna get there. Traquan Thomas is gonna get there, and I didn't even mention his name when I talked about how great the defense was. That's on me. But you can have lapses. I think we can be very vulnerable to give up big plays here and there. Not many, maybe one or two a game, but it's definitely something that is possible. Anything is possible when it comes to a game like this because it's not going to be the big plays that win the game. It's going to be the small things, the stopping, being able to get off the field, controlling the time of possession. I think our defense is. I mean, everybody has weaknesses, and I think that can be something that can be taken advantage of here and there.
And we talked about the big names on that defense. You mentioned a couple of them, 4 or 5 guys, first or second team all SWAC preseason. Let's go over some of those guys. Have they all lived up to the hype? We're talking about Traquan Thomas, Rico Dozier, DeMarcus Cunningham, James Burgess, Amon Scarborough. Have those guys lived up to the hype, all the expectations, and anyone flying under the radar who's kind of stepped up that maybe you didn't expect coming into the season?
Well, I'll answer your last question first. Keon Lewis is the guy who stepped up and that wasn't on the radar before the season. Now, he had some big moments last year. He blocked punts. He got a couple interceptions. He made plays. But this year, he's really taking that challenge and being one of the leaders of that secondary. And he's not the biggest of guys, but he plays bigger than he is. As far as Traquan Thomas, James Burgess, Amon Scarborough, Rico Dozier, those guys have been everything and more for this defense. They have been able to keep this defense has kept us in games that we had no business being in. For example, we played Sanford earlier this season, and they held Sanford to 12 points. Sanford is one of the better FCS programs in the country. I believe they won their conference probably, if not last year, the year before last. And when you're able to hold a program like that to 12 points, you're able to give yourself a chance. If we were to make a couple offensive plays that game, I think we beat Sanford. But I think that Traquan Thomas had a very, very good season. He's done a lot more than he expected. I talked to him. I heard him say this before, probably about a month ago. He's like, his expectation for this season was to finish with 7 sacks. And he's at 6.5 at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. He's going to eclipse that. I think he leads the conference in forced fumbles. James Burgess leads the conference in interceptions. I think that he's going to be selected in this year's draft. He's going to get an opportunity on some of the NFL teams. He's just lanky. He gets it. He knows how to play the position. He has great ball skills. I think he's very talented. But Amon Scarborough has been one of the guys that has been an unsung hero for his defense as well. He has exceeded expectations. He is a leader. He's a vocal leader. Because we lost a lot of guys on defense last year. I mean, Adrian Maddox, Mikey Victor, Amon Scarborough has stepped up in that safety role and taking the defense by storm.
All right. Well, big game coming up. Of course, Alabama State needs it to stay alive. I know you said you're not a coach. You're not in the coach's room, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to put on their coach's hat, especially since you talked to Coach Robinson often. What would you say this team has to do this weekend to come away with the W?
I think we have to control the tempo of the game. You have to dominate the time of possession because the only way, sometimes, as good as your defense is, ultimately defenses get tired. And you put them on the field multiple times in a game, you're basically asking them to get scored on. And that's not just our defense. That's just defenses in general. That happens NFL, college level. I think we have to control the time of the possession to keep your offense off the field at Jackson State because when you have a number one offense, I mean, hey, Jackson State's offense has been running rep shot through everybody, dropping 50 points, 40 points. And if we can force a couple turnovers early, get a couple, special teams, maybe a couple punt returns, kick returns, anything, I think we can really swing the momentum in this game. And for the benefit of it that a lot of people aren't talking about is we're at home. Mm-hmm. We're at home. You have the homes crowd on your side. And that's always a beautiful thing. I know you at Jackson State has one of the best home field advantages in the nation. And I think we have that same thing as well. And I expect Hornet Stadium to be packed out and live and a bunch of energy. So I'm expecting and praying for a Hornet victory.
All right, 2 o'clock kickoff. Great football weather we're expecting, so we expect to see the fans in the stands. Jackson State loves to travel, so that'll be a trip that we'll make. And for anyone who can't catch it, of course, it'll be on ESPN Plus. So we're looking forward to it. A family reunion of sorts. Dennis Driscoll, we'll be looking forward to seeing him. He was at Jackson State. Travis Jerome was at Alabama State. We got Kendall Mans, your guy. Talk about you and Kendall, man. What's their relationship like? And I know you hated to see him go.
Man, Kendall is my guy. I can almost get emotional talking about our relationship because it's so we've been through so much together. That's like my brother from another mother. Uh, we created a podcast. We used this platform, StreamYard, and we did a lot of great things together. And I'm happy to see him flourishing at Jackson State and get an opportunity to really live his dreams and, grow spiritually, grow mentally. I'm proud of him, and I hope he knows that. I hope he sees this. Shout out to Kendall.
He's doing some great things at Jackson State, man. So I know you're looking forward to seeing some familiar faces and vice versa. All right. Well, Khalil, man, we appreciate this, man. We thank you. We knew you were the man for the job, so knowledgeable of the team, and we're looking forward to a good one this Saturday.
Absolutely. Appreciate you bringing me on.
All right, no doubt. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Tiger Talk TV is presented by Bet Online.